Brian Jennings, Head of Adult Services at the New City Library, and I've been buying ebooks for libraries uh, for as long as I can remember. Um, but this has really taken off um, since March 2020 when the world shut down. We were all in our basements looking at reports of what our users at New City wanted and how they were interacting with our ebooks, and we were suddenly putting much more emphasis than we had already been doing on ebooks. So I'm going to end this poll. So no one's used Libby, so that's going to be the focus of this. And if you've used Overdrive, and some of you have never used it, probably the first thing to talk about is what's the difference between Overdrive and Libby. Overdrive is a company that sells us ebooks, and they originally had an app called Overdrive. More recently, they developed an app called Libby, which is much more user-friendly. And they've announced that they'll be getting rid of their Overdrive app, which is, so if you're using it, you'll be able to continue to use it, but new users won't be able to use it. There is one caveat to the app going away, and that is that people who have a Kindle Fire will, Amazon has not made the Libby app available through their app store, so you can still continue to use the Overdrive app if you have a Kindle Fire. So just to get started, some of the things we're going to cover today is how to connect your library card account to Libby, and then how to borrow and read ebooks. If you have a Kindle, we'll cover how to send ebooks to your Kindle from Libby, how to adjust the reading settings on your Libby app, and then there's still an Overdrive website, which is rcls.overdrive.com, and there is one particular aspect, one or two particular things you can do on that website, which you cannot yet do on the Libby app. One of them is to make a recommendation of a title, and the other one is to adjust your notifications so you get a notification via email. So I'll show you how to do those two things. And then at the end, we'll open it up for any questions that you might have for me. So to get started, let's go to New City Library.org. So if we're at the newcitylibrary.org website, there's a link that says eLibrary, and there's lots of information here. But if we just click this first link, ebooks, e-audio, and streaming media, there are two main services the library uses for ebooks. One is called Hoopla, which we're not going to talk about. The other one is Overdrive. Now, if we select Overdrive here, we're at this Overdrive website. But since the focus of this is Libby, we're going to come back to this later, and I'll talk about some of those unique things you can only do on this site. But what we're going to do is we're going to try Libby. And if you were on your smartphone or tablet, you could then download the app by clicking on one of these links. It would open in your app store and you could download it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on libbyapp.com. And this, even though I'm on a web browser, this really replicates what it will look like the first time. If you've never used Libby before, which everyone pretty much indicated that they had not used Libby, or if you've never downloaded the app before, the first time you use it, this is what will show on your smartphone or tablet. And they'll say, do you have a library card? Hopefully you can all say yes to this. And then you get a few different options. Now, one is copy from another device. So let's say you have a smartphone and you're going to listen to digital audiobooks on that. But you also have a tablet, and that's where you read ebooks. Once you set this up, so if you already have this app set up, so I have it set up on my smartphone, you can copy all of the information related to which library you have, what your library card number is, and so you don't have to type that in more than once. So that's what copy from another device means. But for most of you who've never used it, you just want to search for a library by zip code, or you could have the app guess your location. I'm going to search for a library, and we'll just type in 10956, and what you'll see is Ramapo Catskill Library System, New City Library. Now, if you're joining us from another library or another location, and you could search for almost, I don't want to say all the libraries in the United States have access to this, but Overdrive has somewhat of a monopoly on this. So if you have a New York Public Library card, they have Overdrive. If you go to Florida for half the year, chances are they have Overdrive, etc. So once I select that New City Ramapo Catskill Library System, I can sign in with my card. There's also an option, I would like a card, and what that will do, if you live in New City, if you live anywhere in Rockland County, I don't recommend that you say, I would like a card. I recommend that you actually go to the library, because what that's going to do is set up a temporary card for you. So we often have people who have set up temporary cards, especially during the pandemic, that they actually had cards and they had misplaced them. Just give us a call, give your library a call, send me an email. I'll put my contact info up at the end again, and we'll figure out what your card is if it's missing. Because this is kind of like having a second-class library card. So hopefully you all have your card in hand and you sign in with your library card. Now you'll also have to put in a PIN number. Now, again, if you don't know what your PIN number is, I'm going to put my info in at the end. It's bjennings@newcitylibrary.org or 634-4997. You could get that information from extension 125. My extension, direct extension, is 127, and we can look up what your PIN number is if it's not working for you. But it's usually the last 4 digits of your phone number. And you'll see what it says here is my card number, and it says you can borrow 8 items at a time. And in Libby or Overdrive, you can you'll have to place holds on some materials that are popular. So just because it's electronic, some people think everything is available immediately. Because publishers and authors need to make money, libraries need to, when they buy electronic books, it's called one copy, one user. And there's many different models for lending, but that is the standard model. So if I'm reading uh, the latest novel by James Patterson and the library only has one copy, you'll have to place a hold on that. Now, once I hit next, it says, do you want to read with Kindle? And I'll show you how to adjust this later. You don't necessarily have to click this and decide now. But if you do have a Kindle and you want to read with the Kindle, you would say, yes, I read with Kindle. And then what happens is, once you hit borrow, and we'll show you this, it will send you to Amazon and ask you to log into Amazon, into the Amazon account where you have your Kindle registered. So if somebody gave you a Kindle as a gift and it's registered to, let's say, your son, your daughter's Amazon account, you would need to either A, deregister it from their account, or B, know what the login is for their Amazon in order to borrow the ebooks to the Kindle. Initially, when libraries started doing ebooks, they didn't work with the Kindle. Then Amazon was very shrewd. Libraries were able to negotiate that they worked with Kindles, but Amazon was very shrewd so that they made sure that anybody who was reading ebooks for free from the library also knew what their password, username and password was. So that's why that is. So this is, again, a replication of what the app looks like. And at the bottom of the screen, there are 5 icons. And we're going to go through what each of these different icons represent from left to right. Now, the first one is search. So this magnifying glass. So you could simply search for an author. Now, one thing to know, like, for example, here, like I mentioned, some of them you have to place a hold. Others say borrow. So the ones that say borrow, you can get right away. The ones that say place hold, so if I place a hold here, it gives you the approximate wait time, and then you hit place hold. I wouldn't necessarily be too scared about this, but sometimes it can take a while. The average wait time right now is around 40 days. That being said, we are looking at reports every week. I just had a meeting this morning. I've looked at the reports already this week once. I have someone else who's going in and looking at these at least once a week, if not more, trying to reduce those wait times. And the way it works is New City Library can buy ebooks, but also Nanuet Library, West Nyack Library, Finkelstein Library, and the library system itself can buy ebooks. New City Library patrons get priority on the ebooks we buy. Now, New City Library patrons have borrowed over 52,000 ebooks and digital audiobooks from Overdrive in the last year. It's the highest number in the whole library system. So that's why you might have to wait. Now, why you might not have to wait is we've also spent more money than any other library in the library system on ebooks and digital audiobooks. So When it says you have to wait a long time, if New City Library purchases a copy, you'll get priority on that and you'll get it quicker. I'm not guaranteeing you won't have to wait for some items. There is a finite amount of resources, but I can't guarantee you that we are actively monitoring these holds lists. Um, Now, if that was placing a hold, managing my hold. Now you could also borrow. Now remember, I said I wanted to read this via the Kindle. So that's going to be a little bit of a different experience. So after I hit borrow, it's going to say read with Kindle. And then it's going to ask me to log in with my Amazon. Could have two-step authentication. And it's going to say get library book and deliver to. So I have a few Kindle Fires. I also have an iPad, and Kindle Cloud Reader would be if you have the Kindle app. Let's say you prefer the Kindle format and you have the Kindle app on an iPad. You could send it to your Cloud Reader and then access the Kindle app. Now you could also, if you have an iPad, you could simply read through the Libby app, unless you really prefer that format. And then you would hit get library book, and it sends it to your device wirelessly. Now, your device on the other end has to be connected to the internet. So once you connect, you'll automatically see the book downloading in your books. And if for some reason it doesn't connect, there's a link under settings at the top of your Kindle that says sync and check for new items. You click that and then it will ping it. The key there, and the only issue that I really see people having mostly there, is they don't know what device their Kindle is registered to because it's a gift. If you don't have that problem, then you really probably won't have issues. And if you do have issues, again, I'm going to list my information at the end. I tell people I can figure out 99.9% of the problems. If it's simply an issue of borrowing, if the device itself has some sort of technological problem where it's not functioning, then that's a different issue, which sometimes I can and sometimes I can't figure out. But it's just in terms of borrowing, um, I'm pretty familiar with this. So the first thing we did was search. We found our item. We placed a hold on one, and we borrowed another one via the Kindle. The second link here in this little building, this is like you're coming to the library. So this is the library. So this is browsing for books. So I just want to see what you've got. I don't know what I want. Let me see, what do you have? And it's going to show you what we've just added to the library. And then further down, there are other options, and there are some suggestions. You could look at what's popular. I mentioned before that you have to place holds. You could also look at what's available now. Say you're leaving on a train tomorrow, or a plane, or a car, and you just need something now. You can look at what's available now as well. Or you can look at a series of subjects. Say you just like nonfiction. You can look at just nonfiction. The other thing is when you look at a list, it'll show books versus audiobooks. So if you just want ebooks, that's really the purpose of this webinar. If you just hit books, you're just going to see ebooks. Now you see some you can borrow right away, others you need to place holds on. Now, as we scroll down here, a few other things to point out. Overdrive also has magazines. Unfortunately, the magazines only work in the app or on your web browser. They do not work with Kindle. Kindle is a proprietary format. They don't work with it. The magazines, probably the most notable one that I believe they have is the New Yorker. I think they also have The Economist and People magazine as well. Recently, Overdrive acquired a company called Canopy. So this is really about ebooks, but I just want to mention this. Canopy was a separate company that delivered streaming movies to libraries, and we already had a account with them. But now that Overdrive has purchased them, everything is pretty much status quo in terms of how to use it, but now Overdrive is linking to it directly from their service. So if you see Canopy, this is a streaming movie service. You can stream 10 movies a month. There's an app, a separate app, which I'm not going to go into today. But if you're interested, you can reach out to me. And you create an account with a username and password. You add your library and your library card. But another helpful service for people. So we have searching, browsing at the library, and the three lines in the center are your settings. So under your settings, you're going to see your library card or cards. If you wanted to add another card, so say you and your spouse or you and your child, you could add another library card in there. Another thing is you could add another library. Now, I mentioned New York Public Library has it, many libraries in Florida. You can add a library. So if I hit add library and start to type, I could add New York Public Library. And you could either sign up with one of those temporary cards or you could sign in with a card. Anybody who works, lives, or goes to school in New York State is eligible for a New York Public Library card. There we go. And in New York Public, you can only borrow 3 items at a time. That's because the service is so popular and there's so many people. It's just very difficult. But you'll find if you do a search here, say I search for one of my favorite historians. So I get one audiobook. This is searching New York Public Library. And so the little star indicates where you're searching. Now, if I click on Ramapo Catskill, now they have the star. So when I search, now I'm searching Ramapo Catskill. And I can actually see my recent searches here. So you see, we actually have more of these books by this author than New York Public. And this book just came out yesterday. So that is all under settings, adding another library. And if you scroll down these 3 little lines, there are more settings. This is where you can get that information to copy your settings, your library cards, your libraries from one device to another without typing everything in again. If I hit copy to another device, it gives me a code which I can enter on the other device. There are accessibility features. related to how your text displays. You can change whether you read books with Kindle. So remember, I chose at the beginning I wanted to read books with Kindle, but now I'm going to change that to read books with Libby. Or you can say I have no preference. Also, managing your notifications. So, one thing that you won't see on the app, but you will see here and also on the Overdrive website, which I'll show you later, is your notifications. You can change your notifications so that they are an email notice. So if you otherwise, just like when you get a notification on your phone, a little ding comes up with a little message. That's how you'll be notified when a hold is ready, when the loan is expiring. And this is where you can change whether or not you even want to be notified by that. Maybe you don't want to be notified. You say, I'm getting too many notifications. I don't want that. You could turn it off. But generally, you probably would want to be notified. When this happens. What else? Under this settings link, if you need help. Now, again, you can always reach out to me, but if you want to look at the help screens that they have, you could search for, let's say, notifications, and then it would give you information on how to uh, get the notifications. And then there's an option to contact the library or make a suggestion or reset your account for some reason. You might want to do that. But all of those things related to your account, either your cards or what you read with or help, is all under this settings link. Now the next link is this stack of books. Now, the stack of books, think of the stack of books that you have on your desk or your end table at home. You just came into the library and you borrowed a bunch of books. This is your stack of books. So this is the book that I borrowed earlier. Remember, I sent it to the Kindle, but then I changed it and said I want to read it in Libby. So if I hit open in Libby, it opens it directly in the app. If I hit manage loan, I can actually return this book early. Because I didn't really need that book. I was just testing it out. But this book I've actually been reading. So if I hit open in Libby, this is what it's going to look like. So if I click, accidentally click the link there. This is the table of contents. Now, if I already read part 1, I could go directly to part 2. If you click in the center middle, so center, middle, bottom, you can go back to your table of contents and I could go back to the middle. That's center, middle, bottom, and then table of contents. Now, if I hit center, middle, top, I can adjust my font. So A lot of people use ebooks now because some books aren't being published in large print or they're too difficult to get in large print. If you hit center middle top, you get a menu here. And then if you click on the text, you can adjust your text. So you see, as I make this larger, now my text is larger. If I hit center middle top, hit the text, I can then adjust it back. You can also change the lighting. Or you can change the appearance of the text. Go back to the default. So that's all center, middle top, and then you can change the text. Here, by clicking these two little lines, the default is kind of like page on one side, page on the other, just like flipping a book. You could change it so that it's just one big mass of text as well. I like it traditional. You could also search for a word in the book. So I was reading this book and I remember there was a part where they talked about, I think, Palestine. So if I search for Palestine, then I can get back to those parts in the book that discuss that. So that's reading in Libby. That's your kind of stack of books here, which will have your loans, your holds. So if you hit manage hold, this is a book I'm waiting for. I just placed a hold on it. I'm actually going to cancel this hold because I don't want it anymore. I go back to my shelf and then back to my holds. Here's another book. I want to manage the hold. You'll get a notification when a book becomes available. But let's say you're in the middle of another book you're really interested in, and you're not going to have time to read this other book. So what happened was I got a notification for this book, but I was reading this other book. I didn't want it. So I told them that they could deliver it in 28 days. This was yesterday. But now I'm saying, you know what? I'm reading this other book pretty fast. I'll probably be done with it this weekend. So why don't you deliver this book to me after 5 days? And then update the hold. So that's in shelf, holds, manage hold. You can cancel or you can adjust when the book is delivered. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll get it in 5 days, but what it does mean is you won't lose your spot. Because remember I said there can be a long wait time for some of these items. We're trying to reduce it. I think you'll probably get it faster than what the system says, but if you get too many at once, which that's always seems to be a problem even with the physical books, people say, well, I don't want to place too many holds. I'm going to get them all at once. With the ebooks, you won't lose your place in line. You can suspend your hold and have them deliver it later. So that's all under your stack of books here, what you're currently reading and what you have on hold. And then finally, this last thing is your timeline. So this is all of your activity. When I put it on hold shelf, this one I borrowed, this one I placed on hold, and it tells me my activity. Now, if you don't want to keep that, you can change your actions and you can remove all the activities. You can also change your actions to disable, so it's not recording your activity. Or you can go back and enable it. But that's for the person who says, I can't remember if I read this or not, or They just want to keep a list of what they're reading. That's where you can manage it on your activity timeline. So we have, again, searching, where we can search for materials. We have the library, where we can browse, just like coming into the library. We have this kind of picture of a physical building. We have our settings. We can add multiple libraries. Uh, we can scroll down, click on settings, change how we read books, whether we read it with Libby or Kindle or no preference. Also some accessibility features, managing how we're notified. If we have settings on one app and we want to move that to another, like your iPad and your iPhone, you can copy those settings to another device here. And then we have our stack of books. So all the items that we currently have out and our holds, which we can adjust. And then we have our activity timeline here. So, wow, I've been talking for a while, but I feel like I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover in the app. Um, so let's just go back now and start from scratch at newcitylibrary.org. We went in under eLibrary. We went in under eBooks, e-audiobooks and streaming media, and then we chose Overdrive. But I took us in through Libby because we were talking about that app. But I mentioned at the time that there were a few things you could do only through this website at this point. And if I sign in, I'll show you what a few of those things are. So under my account and holds, here, if you want an email, if you prefer an email notification rather than that kind of push notification that dings at the top of your app, you can add an email and edit an email. So if I really want to be notified by my email, I can go in under my account, go to my holds, find a hold, and edit the email. So also, if you have an email and you no longer use that email, you could put a different email in here. But this allows me to now be notified via email rather than the notification method on the app. Because sometimes we just ignore those things. So I think some people prefer the email. Now, the other thing that you can do here is, let's say you know a book is coming out next week or next month or 6 months from now, or you just really like an author and you want to get on hold for their books before they come out. You want to go the top of the list or as soon as it comes in. Now, if I come in here and search, I know this book is coming out in June. Uh, I've already done several of these. Let me see. The other thing you might use this for is if there's something there and you say, why isn't this here? Why does the library not own this? The library should get this. So this is one of my favorite nonfiction authors. These are all of his books that are here. A lot of them you have to place holds for. Some things are available. But if you click here on the left where it says recommend to library or coming soon, actually probably better recommend to library in this case. This is a book that is due to be published in June by the author. So if I hit recommend, now they're going to email me if the library buys it, and I can go to the top of the list for this book. So it's like a little secret here. You had to stay for the full webinar to get the secret at the end. But ever since the webinar, or ever since the pandemic hit, we have been looking at this recommendation list every week. Prior to the pandemic, I think we ran the report once a month. But ever since we got closed down, March 2020, we run it every week. And we have spreadsheets, we share them with staff who have different responsibilities for purchasing. We have a separate spreadsheet of all of these recommendations for books which have not yet been published, and we have it sorted by publication date. So we go in to place an order. I'm going to place my order this week. What's coming out that people have been asking for, and how many people are waiting for it? So it's a little trick. Overdrive has told us that they will be integrating this feature into the Libby app at some point. And that's part of the getting rid of the old Overdrive app, but they haven't integrated it yet. So for now, if you want to get on this bandwagon of recommending books, this is how you do it. You go in through the Overdrive website, which is linked off of the library. What else did I have? I think that's pretty much it. That's my spiel for Overdrive. I just want to put my contact info up here under newcitylibrary.org under About, and then Contact Us. Thanks for coming.